You are Locked On Falcons Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Falcons Postcast, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me are Jarvis Davis and Aaron Freeman. And of course, this Locked On Falcons Postcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Falcons had only their fourth halftime lead of the season not turn into a win. We'll talk about how this game slipped away from them, and we'll download on how the defense did almost everything it could to stop five. Well, kind of until it couldn't. But first, let's talk about a heartbreaking 30-24 loss in overtime to the Washington Commanders tonight that flat out did not have to happen. So guys, the Falcons had their chances really throughout this game to put away the Commanders, but just didn't. But I think more than anything, because they had some penalties. Yeah, there were a couple of throws that Michael Penix would probably like back. Yeah, the Commanders found a way to kind of stuff Bijan Robinson in the second half. But Jarvis, Aaron, none, and I repeat, none of those, but none of the above is the real reason they lost this game. What lost this game for them was big missteps with clock management, horrible clock management at the end of both halves. You look at 20 seconds, run off the clock the first time, 16 seconds, run off the second time. I'm just going to ask you guys both, is there any reason that you can think of for Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson not to call timeouts with multiple timeouts left at the end of both halves?
There's a reason, T. It's not a good reason, but there is a reason. The reason is that Raheem
maybe I
Morris,
should say a good reason, but you give me a reason. Let's start.
The reason is that Raheem Morris was basically playing for halftime, and he was playing for overtime, right? He did not want to leave any time on the clock for Washington at the end of the game, and he cost his team a potential chance to win the game in both instances where you leave points on the board. Potentially, where at the end of the first half, they have to run a quick throw to Kyle Pitts for 3 yards after they sort of bleed that clock just to stop the clock. And they could have had, an extra 16, 20 seconds on the clock, and they could have run any number of plays at that point in time in order to get yards and put themselves in a more favorable scoring position at the end of the first half. And then obviously you lose a similar amount of time at the end of the regulation where, you can probably run 2 plays. You can get 10 more yards. And instead of kicking, a 56-yard field goal, you kick a 46-yard field goal. And based off of the 56-yard field goal from Riley Patterson, 46 probably would have went in. 50, 51 probably would have went in. 52 probably would have went in. So stopping the clock at any point to get, 5 more yards, 10 more yards, certainly would have probably won the Falcons this game.
Yeah, and I will tell you this, and I want to read a couple of the quick quotes that have come out post game. But Aaron, I was also hearing, and Jarvis, I was also hearing as Aaron was talking, play not to lose, play not to lose versus play to win. And that was problematic for me as well, because that felt like it just got tight and conservative when it definitely didn't need to. But before I read those quick post-game comments, Jarvis, I want to get your initial reaction as well in terms of if there is any reason you can think of other than what Free just said as to why those timeouts weren't taken to really potentially pursue a touchdown in that first half and then at least give your kicker a kick that was not a desperation kick to end the game.
Incompetence. That's all I got to you. This man cost the team the NFC South. You cost your team the NFC South because you came in here talking about outrunning the South. Well, you doggone got caught. You popped your hamstring. You did all you could to not be able to get the opportunity to win this division with your young quarterback who played his behind off. We're going to talk about that in the upcoming segment. The man played his behind off and didn't even have opportunity to win the freaking game in overtime. You know why? Because he could have won it for you in regulation. You gave this man 12 seconds, 12 freaking seconds with 2 timeouts in your bag. And you sat up there and let that clock run. It just run. just run. I just hear Chris Berman. It's just so frustrating to watch this dude continually make the same mistakes in the same game. He did it twice in crunch time when you make those big decisions. And T, you know what? Like, I've always been on Raheem Morris's bandwagon. Like, I pounded the table for him to be the head coach of this team. But oh my gosh, man, I feel bad for Falcons fans right now. I feel like I made a mistake pounding the table for this dude because that was just absolutely ridiculous.
It really, really was. It was unacceptable. It was absolutely unacceptable. And I think you're absolutely right when you say that your heart goes out to the Falcons fan base, because literally I was so excited and appreciative about what we're going to talk about with what Penix was able to do pretty much time and time again in this game. And it was just wasted. It was just wasted. It's like, why do you bring him in to help you secure the NFC South, and then you don't give him a true opportunity to secure the NFC South? I mean, what was it? I'm not going to understand. And okay, this is another one before I go to the quotes and give you guys those so that you could react to them. How is it that you're going to go for fourth down twice? That is really, really ballsy of you, right? That's really, really bold and courageous of you. So why are you going to get conservative in those critical moments? Like, I mean, just go for it. It really is ticking me off as well, because it's befuddling. Like, I cannot, and maybe after the three of us have 24 hours to think, well, less than 24 hours to think about it, and we bring our girl and Tori, you guys check us out in the football party tomorrow, maybe we will know. Maybe we will have figured it out. But you know what, Jarvis, Aaron, I don't even think realistically that Raheem Morris really knows, because here's what he said post-game. He was asked the question, why didn't you use the timeout after the Darnell Mooney catch? The quoted response, probably could have, and then added that in hindsight, could have been a better decision to take it. Morris said he thought the operation was going to be quicker in order to save the timeout. Again, why in the Sam heck are we saving timeouts? Where are we taking them?
To
the locker room?
He's hoarding those timeouts like they're gold, you know? He's got to get, you know, I guess he got gifted some timeouts for Christmas. And so that was his Christmas haul this year. I don't know. Like, I got no explanation for that, you know? And it's crazy because, like, they have multiple coaches that are part of this game management situation. And you got to wonder if someone is like screaming into the earphone, you know, Raheem, call a timeout. And if someone is not doing that, they probably need a new guy to help them out in terms of clock management at this point in time.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Aaron. Like, okay, let's just say you're not the guy who makes that decision, right? You're the guy who wants to hold on to the timeout for whatever reason. There's nobody who is saying, hey, you, time. Like, nobody's saying that. If that's the case, then that's a problem, because you should always have someone who is willing to kind of buck the system or willing to challenge what it is that you're doing, because maybe you can't see the forest for the trees, but they kind of can. And that to me is problematic as well, because I was thinking the same thing. I know fans were on social media screaming, take the time out. Heck, the broadcasters were darn near screaming, take the time out. And here we are again screaming, take the time out. And I just don't think we understand why, with so much on the line, with you finally back in control. You won the game last week. Dallas won the game last week, gave you back the South, and then you just gave it back away. Somebody better make this make sense. But so far, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I don't know. There's no reasonable explanation that he has. All right, because it's not like you had one timeout left. You had two timeouts
both
in the
times.
fourth quarter, and then you had three, you know, and going into the second half.
Multiple times.
You had a total of 5 timeouts.
It would have been different. Yeah, Jarvis, you're right. Like, if it would have been one timeout, I could understand.
Yeah,
be a little bit more defensible.
Like I said,
I want to see that timeout
at both ends of the half.
Yeah.
That is problematic.
But when you're hoarding timeouts at that point, it's like, why are you hoarding all these timeouts? It doesn't make any sense.
No,
You cash them in for bonus or something? Is this something that I'm missing? Like, do you get a bonus for keeping timeouts into the second half? You know what I'm saying? Somebody put a duffel bag of money in your hand
I think there's a
in
new
the locker
rule.
room when you go into the
Hey,
locker room or
wait,
something?
wait.
Like, I'm
Hey,
confused.
guys, think about this. Not to cut you off, Jarvis, but think
Go ahead,
about
go
this.
ahead.
This is something that when
Just keep
Dan
me consistent.
Quinn was here and Raheem Morris was a part of that regime, that was one of the things that they got dinged for the most, if not the most. The fact that when you had to run a 2-minute offense, Dan Quinn just couldn't figure it out. Like it was like
You
he
saw
was
it
can't get
tonight.
right.
It happened
So
tonight.
exactly.
I was like, what are you doing, Dan?
Right. But I would
Okay,
think that
cool. Do your
but I
thing,
would
Dan.
I would think that Raheem Morris would have learned from that because on the flip side, you're under a guy like Sean McVay who's excellent at it. And 5 years under him should have undone what maybe your mindset was under DQ. But I just found that to be amazing. Like, oh my God, like you did the same thing that you and Dan Quinn and that staff were dinged for, and what kind of ran you out of the city, to be honest with you, because some of those bonehead calls and irrational rationales that didn't make sense to anybody else was a big part of why you had to step out of here. But like we said before, you can't blame this on anybody who was under center today, because that guy, Michael Penix Jr., who you actually gave the job to, did his thing. So we're going to talk about that on the other side of this break, how Michael Penix Jr. definitely proved himself. This episode of our Locked On Falcons postcast is brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances, and I think that's better than what I do, because me putting it on my calendar on my phone, that ain't it. But Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year, or even as you approach 2025. So Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. So guys, the rookie came in and did his job. Just the second start of the season, 19 of 35, 223 yards, a touchdown, and a pick, a couple sacks that weren't necessarily all his doing. But ultimately, when you look at the way that he managed this game, especially for me, coming back from that early interception on that second drive, just being able to bounce back so quickly, and then really being able to have that type of steadiness, that type of poise throughout the game, I thought was a good look for him, because we all kind of wondered, I think everybody wondered, okay, first game, not really playing a solid team, a quality team with a quality defense. What's going to happen when you play a quality team with good D? And I thought that Michael Penix still did a great job tonight.
Yeah, I think that was the big thing for me, just starting with the interception. Because,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times what we've been used to seeing this year, like once Kurt throws that interception, that first one, it's another one coming.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure. It's definitely another one coming. But, I think that throw to Cardell Hodge on the following drive, I think it was
Mm-hmm.
just the way he just fired the ball in there. It was just so on point. It was a clear drop by Cardell Hodge. He didn't catch it. And I think that's probably why the Falcons end up going with Ray McLeod, later on in the game,
Mm-hmm.
to running out of the slot wide receiver spot. But I think overall, Penix was poised. Dude just has ice in his veins. And when you think about, in those moments, to find the guy that nobody had any
On that
confidence in
bingo
to
card,
make
no
the play,
sir.
to tie the game up in the fourth quarter, with the game on the line, and getting the rock to Drake on 4th and 11. When you think
Yeah.
about those plays in particular, that 4th and 11 to Drake and that touchdown pass to Kyle Pitts, oh my gosh, it was just like watching a movie. I was like, man, this dude, and he just straight. Almost kind of like Eli Manning like, but not necessarily
Mhm.
the whole dopey look. Michael Penix a little bit more cooler, a lot cooler. I'm sorry, my bad,
Yeah.
MPX. He's a lot cooler
Yeah.
than Eli Manning, but he just got that straight, just no chaser, just like, all right, man, let's go and do this thing. And I think you have to appreciate that when you're talking about a rookie quarterback in his second start out there trying to compete to play well enough to be able to get the game, to be able to have a playoff chance next week against the Carolina Panthers, who their best player just went to IR, and you win in the end type situation, but that necessarily not gonna work out that way because you got the coach who want to hold on Howard timeouts. So yeah, there we go. Sorry, y'all.
Eli just catching strays today, Jarvis. Eli's just like, Eli's like, what did I do? Why you calling me dopey?
I do it exactly.
Y'all know Eli be looking
I
dopey,
know, I'm just
man. Like,
playing it.
come on,
It's
bro.
just funny to me. It's just funny to me. Eli just he's catching strays out of nowhere. But,
Like, yeah, how did he enter the chat?
but
yeah,
no,
Aaron, there were some rollouts there. There were some times where you could see Michael Penix check down. There were some times where you could see him go through first, second, even third read, the progressions. It was just really nice to see those pieces. And I felt like there were some plays where you could tell that Zach Robinson did what he said, which was open up the playbook a little bit more because he could.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the direct snap to Bijan for the first time this year. It worked in the first half. It didn't quite work in the second half. Maybe they should have kept it one time. They should have called it once for the first time, not 2 times.
Yeah.
But that's not on Zach Robinson. That's on Drew Dalman. But with Penix, like he was a little off tonight. Missed some throws. The Falcons were struggling on third downs, but like he came through in the clutch in the end on 2 4th down conversions at the end of the game on that final drive, that game time drive and whatnot. And so, like, it just goes to show what we've been talking about these last 2 weeks with the poise and the calm and being in that situation and being able to fit that ball into that window, especially to Kyle Pitts, who it was nice for Kyle Pitts to have a moment. He's been much maligned these last couple of months, and to have at least that moment where he can sit there and say, "Hey, y'all can't blame me for this one. It's that guy or somebody else this week. So get off my back for at least the end of the 2024 calendar year." So yeah, I think Penix, it wasn't a perfect game for him, much like last week was, or near perfect last week. And so I think this game really is going to be, the silver lining is it's going to be a great learning experience for him, that some of the things that he can clean up and get better at that you expect from a young quarterback. But there are some key moments where it's like, yeah, like I could fit that ball into that window on that 4th and 13. I could fit, find Drake London on that 4th and 11 and whatnot. And those are the things I can build off of into the future.
Yeah. And if this is the conversation you're having after his second NFL start, I'm okay with that. I'm definitely okay with that. But like you said, we'll go ahead and give Kyle Pitts, we'll give KP some flowers because, yeah, that was an amazing catch in the end zone. But he also had another one for 23 yards that extended a drive. So 4 catches for 44 yards for Kyle Pitts tonight. Not bad. 4 catches and 5 targets. When's the last time we had that conversation?
I mean, it's like 4 more catches than he's been having the last couple of weeks. So we'll take it.
Exactly. So we'll go ahead and give him his flowers while we have the opportunity to give him his flowers. But yeah, I think that ultimately it goes back to, and even Bijan Robinson, I mean, obviously the second half, not so good because going into overtime, just 4 carries for 8 yards. But hey, he was lights out in that first half. And that was a lot of why the Falcons were able to dominate that first half so very well. So just appreciate the work that he put in too. But yeah, I think it's like you guys said, don't know what's going to happen next week because now it's completely out of the Falcons' hands. And I don't want to sound pessimistic or negative, but I did say to myself as I was walking away from the TV when they said, yep, it's official. The review's been made. That's a touchdown by Zach Ertz game. I said, if nothing else, you walk away knowing, oh, your future's secure. You're fine because you saw this on the road. You saw this against a very good defense. And I thought that was very impressive as well, because it's not something that we absolutely knew that Michael Penix was going to do. Did we know he could do it? Absolutely. But did we know that he would do it? Not so sure. Well, I think he did quite fine. But, I thought about Aaron throughout the game as well. Probably should have texted him when I thought, this is a bend but don't break situation for these Atlanta Falcons, for this defense, until maybe they broke. So we're going to have to talk about that on the other side. So first off, and we didn't talk much about it other than Zach Robinson in the game that he kind of called for Michael Penix Jr. But Jimmy Lake really did call a good game, especially that first half. Like, he had the absolute number as far as Jayden Daniels was concerned. Like, he was not able to get out to the edge and do anything. He was not able to get into the middle. I mean, I felt like even, when you think about the Falcons' fourth quarter touchdown, for them to even get a 3 and out that late in the game when they literally spent the whole freaking second half on the field, I thought that was really, really good. But let's go back to some of the things that we did see that were positive tonight from this Falcons defense in the first half, like a J.D. Bertrand, able to basically just walk Brian Robinson right on out of the space to be able to get Jayden Daniels for that first sack of the night and the first sack of his NFL career. So for you guys, what were some of the highlights of that first half? And for you, what did you feel like did work for Jimmy Lake in this Falcons defense?
I think the main thing for me, it was knowing that teams were going to be watching your film in the last
Yeah.
couple of games and how you've had success as far as being
Mhm.
able to get to the quarterback. And that is, hey, 55, if he's up in that line of scrimmage, he's coming. And they did
Yes.
the exact
No question
opposite
about
of
it.
that. That's why,
Yeah.
Kate Nelson was able to get that interception. And I was like,
Yep.
I was very impressed. I was like, oh, anticipating adjustments. You know what I'm saying? Like, how about that? We know the second half adjustments have been pretty doggone solid for most of the
Mhm.
year. But to be able to anticipate what teams are going to do or
Yeah.
what teams are going to be looking for, and then make an adjustment off of that, that's pretty
Mhm.
doggone good stuff right there. And I think that when you have things like that go down, they have to be acknowledged and congratulated for it, because that's what we're not used to seeing. We're not used to
Mhm.
seeing, things like that, having the foresight to think ahead and say, hey, this is what they're going to try to do to us now that this is out there. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of like next level, game planning right there. So you got to
Mhm.
give Jimmy Lake credit for that. But I just think that, and a lot of people were trying to, kind of throw shade at Jimmy Lake on the second half. I was like, man, when you look at that second half of that game,
Mhm.
and you see what type of how they were playing Jayden Daniels, because it was obvious that Cliff Kingsbury said, you know what? Bump running the ball with a running back. We're just gonna do quarterback powers. We're gonna say, Jade, man, if it's not there, go.
Yep.
Just take off.
And
Just
go,
take off.
go. Yeah.
Just go.
Yeah.
Just go. Just
Yeah.
go. Just go. Just go. Just go. 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 I'm
Yeah.
not messing up, guys. This is how.
No,
This is what Cliff
that's what it
Kingsbury
felt like.
said. I promise
Yeah.
you. I got exclusive audio of what Cliff Kingsbury told Jay Daniels at halftime. He said, run the football. Just go. 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 I don't care. Read 1, 2, 3. Check down. Go. And that was one of the things that just absolutely murdered this Falcons defense in the second half.
Yeah, and like you said, I don't think it was necessarily anything that Jimmy Lake did wrong. It was just
Sure.
Cliff Kingsbury said, you know what? I've got a weapon, and I'm just going to use the weapon in a different way until I can get back to, his main thing, which is to be able to throw the ball. I'm just going to let him just do everything in his power just to continue to keep the drive alive. And I mean, especially in that second half, like you said, his legs just kept kept going. And that's what kept the defense on the field as long as this Falcons defense was able to be on the field. But like you said, I like the fact that you had those different looks where, Caden Ellis was dropping in coverage, came up with that pick. And that was a great one in that second quarter. And I know we're talking second half, but even in that second quarter, because at that point, the Commanders were marching down the field. They'd already gone like 9 plays. and they'd already held that ball for like 5 minutes. So for them to walk away with that empty possession, I thought that was really a good look for the Falcons as well. And of course, Aaron, I'll give this one to you because we always like to shout out, if we have an opportunity to shout out a Matthew Judon, but definitely I think because I think that was that one play where Ellis blitzed, and that kind of opened up things for Matthew Judon. He got the sack, and I think again that was a perfect time because it was right around that 2-minute mark. So again, you're keeping them from being able to score. But there were a couple of different opportunities there that I thought went well. So before we kind of go into the second half, I wanted to talk about that. And also, you got to give a world of credit to AJ Terrell and what he was able to do tonight in keeping the Commanders' passing game at bay.
Yeah.
Terry McLaurin.
Yeah. The two things I would say stood out to me from a Jimmy Lake in the positive category were he allowed AJ Terrell to shadow Terry McLaurin all game long. He didn't really let AJ do that last week against Malik Neighbors, just sort of on third downs. And so to basically take Terry McLaurin out of this game was huge for the Falcons. Unfortunately, Olamide Zaccheaus decided that he wanted to be the number one wide receiver this week. So, D. Alford, what are we doing, my guy? But I think putting AJ in a position where he could show why, so many of us believe in AJ Terrell as one of the better corners in the NFL, I think it was great for them. And then I think, T, you nailed it with a lot of their pass rushing success in that first half came because of, the offense was so focused on what Caden Ellis was going to do. And they were like, we're not going to let this guy beat us. And they were able to use that, whether it was, blitzing J.D. Bertrand free and Caden Ellis dropping into pressure, or in the case where you're talking about with the Judon sack. So there was multiple plays in that first half where I felt like, the defense's attention was all on Caden Ellis, and that really set up some opportunities for some other guys. And while we wouldn't necessarily talk about Caden Ellis in the ways that we talk about other top pass rushers around this league, like a TJ Watt or Myles Garrett, or those guys that, really sort of help out the rest of their team in this game, I do think that was the case for Caden Ellis. And that to me is huge for this Falcons pass rush moving forward, as they continue to look solid, these last couple of weeks.
Yeah. And Jarvis, not that you can have a team or defense play perfectly, but there were some critical moments that things could have gone one way for the Falcons. It didn't. I mean, literally, sorry, D'Angelo Malone, but he wipes out a 3rd and 22. Like they were dead to the Commanders were dead to rights, and he wipes out that 3rd and 22 penalty. And then ultimately gives the Commanders new life. We know what happened there. And then there was them possessing the ball, like we talked about a little bit earlier, 7 minutes and 13 seconds, the first 7.5 almost minutes of that third quarter. But there was that 3rd and 22 defensive penalty. And then Daniels 4th and 1, he gets a run. Daniels runs on 3rd and 8. Then there's the 10-yard Daniels to Ertz touchdown pass. And you kind of felt like, okay, this is starting to slip away, but not just necessarily about Jimmy Lake's play calling, but about the execution or lack thereof by the defense.
Yeah, when you think about the tackling, I tweeted it out during the game. Like, this is one of the worst tackling games I've ever seen from this defense. Specifically this season, because there were just a lot of just shoulder tackling. Like even the tackle, great as AJ Terrell played in coverage tonight. That tackle attempt on the goal line, that was awful.
That was not a tackle attempt.
It's just. And then even on the one play where Justin Simmons had made a really nice hit on Jayden Daniels, but Jayden Daniels almost, if he had enough rocks in his pocket, he probably could have spent out of that too, because Justin Simmons didn't try to wrap up. D. Alford, same way on that. I think it was on 4th down when McNichols had caught the ball. Jesse Bates had come up and made the tackle, stopped him. All D. Alford had to do was just come up high and wrap up, and he could have stopped the guy's momentum from getting the first down. Just like, dude, it just play after little small play after small play. That's why you have a combined 2 touchdown drives of 29, 30 plays. That's how you get that, because you miss a tackle here, he gets 2 or 3 more yards. You miss a tackle here, he gets 7 more yards. You miss a coverage here, you get 20 yards or 30 yards, and a guy running wide open down the field. So It's just so many things that just continue to just add up. And then when your offense goes three and out in between I knew what was going to happen on the following drive with the defense. I knew they were going to stay on the field and weren't going to be able to get off, because that's what happens when you don't make the plays when they are there, because the plays were there. The plays were there to be made for the Falcons to beat this team, and they didn't make them. They just didn't make them, and it fall mostly on Raheem Morris for not calling timeouts, in those moments, and giving your quarterback the best opportunity to be able to get some points on the board or maximize the points on the board. And then your defense in the second half, they were just on the field too long, and they just continued to miss tackles. It was almost like they took the Monstars, went over to the Washington Commanders locker room and said, "Hey, let's get your penalties, let's get your missed tackles, and we'll play like that in the second half, and y'all can have how we played in the first half." It was so weird, just so weird. I was like, man, there's no way that I knew going into overtime. I was like, if the Commanders got the ball first, I was like, there's no way they're going to be able to stop them. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I said the same thing when that coin toss came, and it was like, Commanders win the toss. Oh, well, Commanders win the game. That's exactly what I said in my head. But just real quick before we wrap up, speaking of that coin toss, this is always the controversial thing when it comes to your team or the team you cover, right? So when you're watching another team like the Buffalo Bills complaining, we didn't even get an opportunity to get the ball back, it's like, well, tough niggas. But when it's your team, it's a little bit different. It kind of hurts, because it's like, it would be great. Not that you want a 8-9 overtime situation like we saw with Georgia versus Georgia Tech in college football a couple of weeks ago, but it does kind of hurt that the team doesn't even get the opportunity to get the ball back and maybe score and then, hey, maybe we go kind of sudden death from there. I don't know. What do you guys think about, hey, whoever wins that toss, you score, you win?
Yeah, stop it.
Yeah, I mean,
professionals, man. Like,
they've been on a 7-minute drive.
Don't my football.
Don't even let it happen.
They had like 3 7-minute drives, and in after halftime, like, you had plenty of opportunities to get stops, and they didn't get the stops. So Washington earned that. So like, I'm not one of those people that's like, it sucks, but like, Atlanta had
don't let it get there.
Yeah, Atlanta had a dozen opportunities to get stops in the second half of the game on third downs and fourth downs, and they did not get those stops. And so they only have themselves to blame. You can't blame the rules like, oh well, it's not fair. It's like, it was fair. You had like 15 times where you could have made a tackle or broken up a pass or gotten a sack or something to stop Washington from winning this game, and you didn't do it. So that's fair.
Yeah. But when you allow third down efficiency, 6 of 13, and granted, this is one of those teams that, especially on fourth down, I mean, it was a perfect 3 for 3. But again, this is not the team that you kind of want to let go there, because they're tops in the league when it comes to fourth down conversion rate, when it comes to scoring points off of fourth down conversions. And it's just, that's what they do. So yeah, you don't even want to get them in a situation where they have the opportunity to do that. But is what it is. 30-24, the final in overtime tonight. Falcons are now in a do or die situation come next week. But anyway, thanks to our everydayers for making the Locked On Falcons postcast your first listen of the day. Make your second listen of the day Locked On Falcons. And of course, you can even take a listen to Aaron right after we wrap the postcast. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're free and available wherever you download your podcast. And we will see you tomorrow.